Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Maria Bueno. I work for the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics, and I will be sharing this webinar today. It's a pleasure to have you all here in our webinar of the series, Using Mobile Phone Data for Official Statistics. This webinar is promoted by the UN Big Data Regional Hub in Brazil, with support of the Economic Commission for Latin America and Caribbean, ECLAC, through the Knowledge Transmission Network of the Statistical Conference of the Americas. If you want to know more about the Regional Hub, you can go to our webpage at hub.ibge.gov.br. Where you can read about future webinars and workshops, and also access records of our past activities. Today, we'll talk about data access. Mobile phone data is a big challenge. It's necessary to put national statistics offices, governments, development agencies, mobile network operators, and other ICT companies on the same table. All those stakeholders need to work together to implement solutions which are sustainable over a long period of time. That's very important to statistics offices, and are also supported by business models. That is important for the mobile operators. We have today invited 3 guests, and they will speak for about 15 minutes each. After that, we'll have 10 minutes for questions and answers. And please place your questions on the chat, and we will bring them at the end of the session. Our first speaker is Mr. Eric Saluver. He is a member of the board of Position, a data analytics company based in Tartu, Estonia. He has over 15 years of experience with mobile position and data, and his main focus is finding new applications for MPD to turn anonymized raw big data into valuable insights and statistics of human mobility. Position has produced official statistics for MPD since 2009, and is continuing to help countries to get statistics for decision makers. Eric is also contributing to academic discussions in this domain and has participated in several international projects as a field expert. Eric, it's a pleasure having you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maria. I will try to put the slides on. Can you see?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria, for nice welcoming words as well. My name is Erki Saluver, as was introduced, and I come from Estonia, from North Europe, from a company called Positum. And as Maria already introduced, I've been dealing with mobile positioning data for more than 15 years. To be very precise, my first kind of hands-on exercise with mobile positioning data was back in 2006. So it's been quite a long time when I've dealt with the data. And I started as a researcher on this data, and later actually Positum was grown out from university as a spin-off company, and is applying now methodology and also consultancy, and then software solutions for processing the data into actionable insights. And today I will talk to you about data access questions, and will give some hints how to maybe overcome based on my experience. So mobile positioning data and data access. What do we know about that? So first of all, we know that mobile positioning data is very valuable data source. It can be used in so many different domains for the population analysis, for the tourism analysis, tourism management, traffic, mobility, etc. analysis. It could be used as a real-time data, or as well as historical data for the crisis management, etc. So it has many different use cases. But one of the problems so far has been that it is owned by private data holders, so mobile network operators, and access to the data has been quite limited in most of the countries. And if the government wants to access the data, it has been a huge challenge. The data is also sensitive because it does include privacy aspects of the personal individuals. It is regulated by telecommunication legislation and also about the private data holder internal rules. So there are many legal aspects to overcome. But still, there are very many different scenarios how this data has been accessed, although no single truth. Still, Maria also talked about stakeholders, and there are many of them. So we can start from the statistical authorities who are very interested in wanting to access that kind of data, because that actually would take some of the burden from their shoulder doing, for example, service. Especially, it's also becoming very important because the response rates have gone down recently, and NSOs really want to innovate, and they feel also that they are more and more pressured into delivering more granular and faster data. So they really want to do one MPD project or several ones. Actually, the mobile network operators, they also want to do the project. And not only that, they want to have their internal data monetization for on that data, but they also want to give back to the society, do social good projects. It's something that the GSMA, which is their head organization, is showing that there is a really willingness to do that. Of course, in any MPD project, there has to be data protection authority involved. To be honest, after the GDPR was put into place by European Union, and this has been like the golden standard on data protection topics, it's now much more clear that if we talk about generating statistics, then this is something that is worthwhile pursuing also for the privately held data sources. In GDPR, Article 5 and 89 have special clauses how without consent the data could be accessed for the statistical purposes. So in that sense, there is willingness to do that from the data protection side as well. And in most of the projects where I've been involved, the data protection authority in that sense hasn't been the blocker. Then there is a telecom regulator who is regulating the work of the MNOs. And in many cases, actually, they are the ones who are already using the data for their own internal statistical generation. Often that is not, for example, divided into geographies, etc., that is giving most of the value from the MPD projects. But still, it's already widely used, so internally for them as well. So they seem to be also in favor. And of course, there are many other parties who might be involved in MPD projects as well, like international organizations who are already pushing also for the innovation as this seminar is happening. Academia is doing many different research projects. Private sector is also very interested in having the insights from the data, and different ministries are very, very interested of the end results. So everybody seems to be in favor. So why I'm talking here to you? So it's like an open question. So I try to a bit dig it up. So first of all, if we talk about statistical authorities, if we look at what are their assignments, so they have a mandate to produce official statistics by the statistical law. They have a legal basis to collect personal data because that's they work anyways. They have legal guarantees and obligation to protect the data, and that's actually maybe the best defined out of all the players who produce statistics in any country. So it seems to be that it's a perfect fit as well. They know how to produce statistics, of course. And in many cases, in many countries, they already access some of the privately held data anyways. And sometimes they already have a mandate as well. But still, if we look at it in that sense, it seems to be easy, but still something is holding it back. So one of the topics, of course, is privacy protection. And maybe because it's a bit more kind of nuanced that at the beginning it seems. So this is maybe holding back as well. Because if we look the production of statistics from mobile phone data, this is one of the typical slides that we use in the projects that Positium is holding. So we have the mobile phone users who connect to the mobile network towers, so generating these location data to the mobile network operators. This data is then processed in some sort of algorithm in order to produce statistical indicators that then are taken into the either statistical office and then later into the dashboards, application, etc. So that would end into the hands of decision makers. So that's basically the kind of flow of the data from left to right. And if we see, then there are different kind of privacy aspects throughout this process change. So first of all, the phone users are protected by the privacy laws. And of course, I already gave some hints that for the statistical purposes, there are already coming up more and more kind of exceptions, but still, it's something that has to be borne in mind. Then there is this processing of personal data within the privacy private data holders' hands. So in the mobile network operators. And this is, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is protected by their internal laws and then telecommunication laws in the country. And of course, at the end, there is also this statistical confidentiality, which is also, again, governed mainly by then Statistical Act. So we can see that there are already three different kind of law verticals that you have to understand in order to do the project. It's not something like really out of the ordinary, but what happens often, of course, is that these different laws might be contradicting. And this is why it's very important to bear in mind in any planning of the project, or well, if it's already ongoing, then it's sort of already late. But anyways, it's always important to bear in mind that there are actually three different privacy verticals that have to be governed and checked that they correspond to the MPD projects. Then there are data access dimensions that we think this is something how you have to look on accessing the data as well. And that's something that has to be thought in advance when you do MPD projects. And that's often that is forgotten, or it's a project is defined based on what data is available, and that's not the best solution in my mind. So what are the dimensions? So first of all, commercial access models. Okay, let's take first the data access levels. You can access the data on raw level, which is basically pseudonymized data, and a bit different laws do apply here than, for example, on the aggregated results. So you have these two different views, raw or aggregated, how you can access the data from the mobile network operators. With raw, you have full control over how to process the data. That is the benefit. Even more, theoretically, you can link it to the other data sources as well, but that needs to be, again, thought in advance. Why you do that, very important, is the clause fit for purpose. On aggregated result, you have to kind of agree that what you get is what is given to you. So you don't have control over, for example, quality assessment of the data, how it's put together. But in some cases, it is not so important, and it's already good to go. And we can take it into the matrix based on the data access models. So you can ask from the MNO the data that would be given for you voluntarily. So basically, you can ask the mobile network operators if they are willing to participate in data for social good project and provide data in aggregate form voluntarily or in raw form voluntarily. Both are possible. But of course, voluntarily raw, that's very, very rare. And that's actually, this voluntarily aggregates, that's mostly what I see in the world, what's happening. The other possibility is that based on your mandate or by some other government mandate, like the TRA might have, the telecom regulator might have the mandate, they can access the data by mandate from the mobile network operators. And again, that might be on aggregated form or raw form. Both are possible. I give you some examples in upcoming slide, how it works. And of course, there is always a possibility for the commercial one as well, because of course, mobile network operators would want to be based on the commercial one. And I mean, it really depends on how much value is generated for the statistical office out of that. So it's something that is worthwhile pursuing as well, because that is definitely the fastest way to access the data. But you have to think it in advance before going. Of course, there are other dimensions of the MPD access. So first of all, you have to understand what kind of data you want to get from the mobile network operators. I will not go to the details of those, but can comment later. But basically, what for you will use the data, also the question what kind of data to ask from the mobile network operators depends. So for the mobility analysis, it's one, and for the tourism analysis, it's another data source. You have to also understand what are the other key governmental organizations that you have to involve in a project. So is it the regulator also involved? Do you want to produce official statistics, or this is some experimental statistics that will not be part of your kind of statistics that have to be internationally comparable? That is important because that defines the needs on the methodology. So you can't, for example, access maybe the already aggregated statistics because it would be not internationally comparable. That would lead exactly to the author of the methodology and algorithm. Who is it? And how do you check the quality of the data? How many MNOs you want to be involved? Again, it's based on the necessity what do you want to do with the data? And there are technical questions like where do you process the data, and do you want any other operators to be involved? Quickly, some examples where you can use it. So COVID-19 was one where a lot of voluntarily aggregates were offered. For example, in Estonia, we produced statistics for the government from all 3 operators, and operators provided the data voluntarily every day, and they processed the data based on the National Statistical Office algorithms. And the third party, which was Positium, helped to define those algorithms. But we could only generate very few indicators because actually that's quite complex setup, and the speed was very important here. So we couldn't go deeper in that sense, but still it worked. In Estonia, we also produce official statistics for the Central Bank of Estonia since 2009. Here, the access is based on mandate. So in Estonia, the official statistical provider can mandate the private data holders to provide data for them. And in that case, the data is provided raw. Third party, in this case, Positium, is processing it for the central bank. And it's a time series now, soon going to be 15 years of data. For example, in Oman, there was also a mandate and third party processing the data, but from 2 different MNOs. But it was a one-time off project. So they're still working on it to form them into the official statistical program. So that might also take time in the future. So it's something to bear in mind to design the project, to think it in advance already. In Georgia, the National Statistical Office has the mandate to get the data, but it goes through the telecom regulatory, because they have actually the mandate to ask the operator, and so the setup is together with the TRA. And they haven't still produced official statistics, but experimental statistics, still working on it because of some topics that concerns the aspects of the data. In Indonesia, it's based on commercial and aggregates, but the mobile network operator has a third party. In this case, again, I'm giving the examples that where we are involved. We processed the data for the mobile network operator, and then the Ministry of Tourism, that was actually the beneficiary of the data, paid to the mobile network operator, and the National Statistical Office was only checking over the results if they are to the standard, and also publish them as an official statistics. So like a different kind of partnership. And one historical example from Saudi Arabia as well, where the Ministry of Tourism, again, not the statistical office, has also paid for the MNO to get the aggregated results. And they get regular basis update, weekly, monthly, quarterly, but again, these are not part of official statistics. This is a complicated table, and I hope Maria will send you later the slides, but basically all that I showed about these different use cases that were here, where I just put them into the table to have the overview of how these different dimensions play a role. And I will not stop here because what I want to tell you is that if you want to do a mobile positioning data project, then we suggest to make a roadmap for that project. And in the roadmap, we see that there are 4 main stages. So the very first stage is situation analysis. So what do we want to actually achieve? So specifying needs is very, very important. Often MPD projects start with a data access, but we do not recommend that. Because you would anyways need to answer this question. So what is your needs? And what would be your success criteria based on those needs? Because you have to predefine as well, like what kind of data is not good for you, so that you wouldn't spend time in the later stages to find out that actually it didn't work. You have to do the legal situation assessment, these three verticals that I explained. How do you fit into your needs and the legal situation? And based on the needs, success criteria, and legal situation, you can choose the business model. Basically, is it how can you actually access the data? Can you go with the mandatory? Can you, if you have a budget enough, maybe the commercial makes most sense, or you could go the voluntarily way. Anyways, this is something that you have to design based on these three things. And of course, you have to predefine also who will be your partners in the MPT projects. And then you can move to the data access, where you discuss with the chosen MNOs, set up the environments, and do the preliminary QA. And then after that is the regular or the statistical project, where you first would do a pilot with specifying needs, design, and build. And then later on, you have the implementation with collect, process, analyze, and dissemination, continuous data production. And this is something that we also promote. And also we have some kind of materials to provide how to do the roadmap on MPD project. Also, to define the needs, I recommend you to read an article that we published after the COVID. So the 5 principles to ensure trust in the production of statistics from the mobile operator data. And we list 5 main principles here. So there's a link on an open article, and Maria can share it later. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions if there are time.
Thank you very much, Eric. It was a good presentation, a lot of information that are very useful. And now we are going to our second speaker. Our second speaker is Federico Segui. Federico is the Deputy Director General of the National Statistical Institute of Uruguay. He's also NSI's data steward and Chief Data Officer, and responsible for the implementation of the data warehouse, integrated system of statistical registers and surveys. He also has been a consultant for several international organizations as an expert in official statistics based on administrative registers, quality of statistics, metadata, and microdata anonymization. He's also the author of various publications on those topics. Welcome, Federico. Thank you for accepting our invitation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria. I'm gonna share my screen. I hope you can see it.
It's okay.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks to IBGE and United Nations for the invitation. And I am glad to share this webinar with Erkki. I could visit Estonia last year. It's a beautiful country. I will share the experience of Uruguay on using mobile data especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. The objectives of this work were to start the experimental production of statistics from administrative records or call detail records provided by the mobile network operators, and also to provide updated and high-frequency information to the National Emergency System, SINAE, during the COVID-19 pandemic and for other disasters and other uses. It was the first experience of the NSI of Uruguay in working with this type of the information, and I think it's also one of the first in the region. And let's see the rationale. Also, we want to analyze population mobility during disasters, not only COVID-19 pandemic, as I mentioned, generate more frequent mobility statistics and at a lower cost, make estimates in small areas, neighborhoods, towns, small towns, strengthen capacity for planning sustainable urban mobility, immigration and tourism statistics, also for census, to produce basic population statistics, and monitoring of population fluctuation and for urban planning. Let's see the market share of mobile phone subscribers by telco in Uruguay. We have three companies. Antel is the national public company. It has around the 50% of the market share. And the private sector is divided by Telefónica Movistar with a 33%. And Claro with around 20% of the market share. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we received the data from Antel, the national public company, on this format, this matrix. And it is an overnight activity matrix per day with 6 main columns: date, origin, location, the department and town, or the neighborhood in the case of Montevideo, the capital city, then destination location and quantity of cell phone displaced from the origin to the destination, taking into account some data protection elements, like if there are less than 15 cells, less than 15 cell phones in that cell, the display value will be 15. So this matrix shows the number of cell phones, probably people moving from one place to another by day. We receive this aggregate data, so for us it is not a big data project. So the data is already processed by the telco. The big data analysis is done by the MNOs. Due to we receive data from Antel, the public company only, we couldn't disseminate the data. We should have the 3 companies to allow us to disseminate the data. but we use it to produce experimental statistics and for the National Emergency System Authority, especially during the pandemic 19, the COVID-19 pandemic, to monitor how people is moving or following the recommendations of staying at home. In Uruguay, it was not mandatory to stay at home during the pandemic. Let's see some definitions and the methodology that we applied, or that the telco used to build this segregated data or matrix. We define as overnight state when the cell phone stay for at least 4 hours between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. During the night before the reference day. The primary activity is when the cell phone was in use for at least 3 hours between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. on the reference day. The reference days of the information are Wednesday and Sunday of each week, and on regular basis, monthly, it is delivered. Here we have some dashboards we have developed. These dashboards were developed by the National Statistical Institute using the data provided by the telco to present the data and to monitor the movement of the mobile devices. You can select in the first part of the dashboard, you can select the origin area, for instance, a neighborhood of Montevideo. And in the window below, you may see the top 5 destination areas with the quantities of the mobile devices. Also, here in the table on the right, you can see the full ranking of destination areas. Also the dates selected. Here we have other screenshot from the dashboard with the detailed info of the selected area. All of these dashboards and visualization were inspired in the National Statistical Institute of Spain. They have a lot of experience. I mean, they are producing this kind of dashboards from several years ago. So we learn from them to prepare this kind of dashboards. Other charts, I think it is quite difficult to see. And let's see what are the learned lessons and challenges of this pilot experience. We need to involve the telco regulatory authority called URSEC here in Uruguay. In fact, we are in this process right now, trying to get the data through this authority. Also creating incentives for the MNOs. One option could be paying for data. It's not in our plans for now. We know that the National Statistical Institute of Spain pay for this data to the telco. I think that is something like 2,000 euros per day per telco. Other option could be generate market share information with high frequency and timeliness. Also integrate information from the different MNOs with business surveys, generate reference maps or data, integrate information with the continuous household survey, technical assistance for the generation of statistics, data analysis, also the NSI could provide tailored reports, and also to avoid the excessive burden of the MNOs. The NSI should be the only channel of the government agencies to request information for statistical purposes. For instance, the Ministry of Tourism is using this information. So we are working with them to have an agreement to ask for this data through unique channel, not asking from different agencies for the MNO's data, and avoiding excessive burden from them. As I mentioned, the strategy we are following is to take advantage of the particular case of Uruguay. I mean, Antel is the telco, the state-owned company, telco. It facilitated the access to data within the framework of the national statistical system. So Antel is part of the national statistical system. So it made it possible to carry out pilot tests and to define more clearly the information requirements, and also approach to private telco through the Communication Regulatory Authority, or SEC, and make data requests for statistical purposes from public institutions through the NSI, as I mentioned. That is the experience that I wanted to share with you, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. And also, just to finish, I want to thank you very much, and just a final message. Remember, the Festival de Datos will be in November in Punta del Este, Uruguay, and also the United Nations Datathon will be in Montevideo the weekend before the Festival de Datos, from 3 to 6 November. Thank you.
Thank you, Federico. I hope to be there
Yes, you are very welcome. And all other participants. Thank you.
Unhappily, our TD presenter had a problem and wasn't able to attend the webinar, and we apologize for that. And so we go to questions and answers. Before I go to the chat to read the questions, I have two questions, one for Erkki and one for Federico. First for Erkki. Erkki, do you believe that privacy issues are an excuse to deny data access, or it's really a problem?
So if, let me repeat that. If, okay, can you repeat that?
Do you believe that privacy issues is an excuse of the companies, private companies, to deny data access?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it really a problem?
Yes, it is often because how I see it, and actually how it's often defined by the Data Protection Authority as well, is that with those requests, because they are new type, we haven't had those big data sources for too long. So it's in short, it's a new problem in legislative form. And it's often they define it as gray area. So it's very hard, very easy to say like, this is gray area, let's not better do that. But I mean, that's not really the answer, right? So you can say for anything new that, oh, that's new, let's better not do that. So it is often used as an excuse. You are very right. And again, going back to my presentation, it is very important to predefine what do you want to achieve with the statistics that you want to derive from the privately held data sources like the mobile positioning data, because then it's much easier to negotiate also with MNOs, with the Data Protection Authority, etc. What do you exactly want to do? Because otherwise you would end up like, I want to have mobile positioning data, and that's like open question. So, and why do you want to do that? I want to do statistics. That's not enough. You have to go like deeper. What do you really want to do? And then actually answering those excuses becomes easier as well.
Okay, thank you. I always have read the companies, the enterprises that work with mobile phone, they always says that it's a question of privacy, but it's hard to hear that, because we are statistical offices, so we daily have problems and try it. With daily, I forgot that we use confidentiality. We have rules to cope to that. So exactly. It's, for us, it's very strange is to hear it from them.
Yeah, that's exactly the case, that statistical offices are dealing with much more sensitive data than actually mobile phone data every day. They know a lot, and they keep the data. They know how to keep it. They know how to apply confidentiality. Actually, nobody else knows better than the statistical offices how to apply confidentiality, because confidentiality is not only about privacy, but it's about discrimination, etc. as well. So all the other dimensions that come into play as well, if we talk about data protection. And so I think they are very well positioned. And now, of course, if somebody comes to you and says like, yeah, but privacy. So I would now recommend to a reference to the GDPR Article 5 and 89, as I mentioned in my presentation as well. They clearly state that for the statistical purposes, this is actually allowed. So because it's becoming like this world standard, it's a good reference point. So that this is not the case. Local laws might be the case, and then you have to deal with the local laws. But show me the clause that will not allow, and deal with exactly this one.
Okay, thank you. And now, Federico, during COVID-19 period, do you try to ask data for the private companies like Claro or no? And if yes, what was the reception?
So, sorry, I couldn't understand. You asked me about Claro, if we ask for data from them?
Yes, if you ask data for them during the COVID-19 period, and what was the answer? What was the reception of the asking?
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, in fact, we asked for the three data from the three companies that operate in Uruguay. it was easier for us to ask to access data from Antel because it's a public national telco, and they are part of the national statistical system. But the other two companies, the private companies, we had a lot of meetings at high level and also technical level, and they wanted to share information, but they share information with us and also with the emergency the authorities, but in a very aggregated level, not as detailed or disaggregated level as we wanted. So we cannot sum or add data from these two telco. And after that, we went through the communication authority, the regulator, and we have a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, to access to the data from the three companies, and they are trying to establish a regulation to force them to share the data to the regulator, and then they share the data, the aggregated data, the three companies with the NSI. But we are in this process, and during these negotiations, they said that we are trying. I understand what I agree with Elke about they said that the confidentiality is a problem. I think it's an excuse. and after that, they said that we are trying to destroy their business because they want to sell the data. They want to produce data. And to sell the movement of the population and to this dashboard or this kind of things. They want to sell this kind of data. So if we produce this indicator of dashboard for free, they think that we are destroying their potential business, So, and we are in these negotiations. Thank you.
Here in Brazil, we heard a similar thing, but not they are interested in sell data. They are interested in sell the service.
Yes. It's the same. The service. Yes, sure.
They're already processed. Yes. But it's very hard for us, statistical office, to accept this because we don't know what methods, what they are doing exactly, because we need a transparency methodology and not to accept anything from a third party.
I agree.
We have some questions in the chat. One that Dirk has already answered is about if all kinds of phones are part of this process. And Dirk said that's yes. MPD collects location data for all devices that have SIM cards. And we have questions about people that use more than one device, mobile device. It was very common some years ago. I think it's not anymore. It's common, but not at the same like many years ago. I heard from Indonesia that they have a survey where they ask if you have more than one SIM card, so you can correct this bias. I think that's the only way you can correct this. Do you have anything to say about that, Eric?
Yeah, I think Federico can also say, because that is very, very common question indeed. No, actually, there are several ways. So one is exactly to apply statistical extrapolation methods on top of the data, because you might be working with one MNO as well. So actually, there are over-coverage and under-coverage anyways. So with statistical methods, you can overcome them. And then the survey might help you to do those methods, or you have already some other existing data as a reference to do that. That is the most common way how to do that. But the other possibility is that you apply some special algorithms to detect core presence phones in that sense. And that's something that has been tried, but actually for the statistical production, I've never seen anything put in place to run for the long run, because, well, actually some people spend all their time together as well. So you are generating another type of problem to overcome as well. But what is now upcoming and more interesting is that you would actually, as a statistical authority, you can link the data to actual person IDs as well. And then you would overcome this problem based on that link. So some of the statistical office is already investigating that part, and that is, of course, very interesting and opening up much more ways how to make even more out of this mobility data combined with other social demographics that statistical offices have. But of course, that's even more privacy regulated area, of course. But still, something is happening in that domain as well as one option.
Federico, would you like to say something about that?
Erkki explained it perfectly.
Another question, is there any standardized algorithms repository or effort to standardize algorithms to generate specific indicators so the statistics produced could be compared across countries or geographies? Erkki?
I'm happy to announce that Eurostat, for example, in Europe, has just started this year a project to standardize some use cases exactly. But this is a 3-year project, so quite some time to wait until the results. But there is, especially from those big standardization organizations like Eurostat is, they want to take a lead in that, and there will be some things from Eurostat for sure. It just takes time. Federico might add, and of course there are many open source initiatives as well that you can benefit from, but those are still not standard, so they are still standalone. Maybe Federico would like to add.
Maybe it's not a standard, but the UN expert group of big data will have case studies for each subgroup of MPD use, so you can see the guides. It's on the web page of the UN expert team. But it's not a standard, but you can see the experience of other countries.
Yes, there are a lot of things to learn from. I mean, there are several technical things about how each telco records each call and the signs. There are several things that to harmonize among the telco, how they register the calls and how they produce the aggregated data in case of they produce it. Yeah, we have to learn a lot of these things. We had a lot of meetings with NSI of Spain. They have more experience in this area, and they said that the same thing, that they are learning every day about these technical things from different operators.
As I think that many countries are trying to use the mobile phone data, they have study cases, they have prototypes, algorithms they are trying to use, and many of these cases are reported on the guidelines of the UN expert group, and of course on the statistical offices web pages of each country.
Yeah, if I may add, exactly. So, Maria, you are correct. So, UN statistical, this expert group on mobile positioning data, this is something where you can find many use cases. And actually, one way to sort of view on the standardization is something Federico said as well. You can find some use case that is maybe applicable for your personal needs as well. And just talk how they did it, and that's how standards are formed. So you can basically collaborate on those partners that were in the other projects as well, and in that form build like the standard.
Yes, and you contribute to share the methodology and will improve it, of course. Well, okay. We don't have any more questions, so I have to finish here. Thank you very much for the presentation. The discussion was excellent. The records of this webinar will be on the Brazil Hub in the next days, and you can access that. And the presentations will be there as well. Okay, thank you very much for your availability and sharing your experience here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank
day.
you, Federico.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for listening. Bye.